I've been on this road before. It looks different every time, but it ends the same. I guess I was just too blind to see that the signs haven't changed. I hold it tight to my chest, to a high esteem, I mean very high above, something like the Zeta's dove. I haven't found it yet, so I continue to go on the quest to love. I was giving my all and nothing really screamed for me to stop. The big octagon didn't seem to do it. Fascinated by the role that I was playing, so I ignored the warning and ran through it. Not really concerned about the speed limit, I flew through every yellow light because my heart was in it. Maybe I should have used a couple to slow down, to reconsider the breaking of my shield, but I disregarded every yield. Cut off so many people, better yet cut out. Ignored Jesus, not even Jesus could tell me anything, 'cause I had all the answers. I knew what this love thing was about. When in reality, I should have merged his thoughts into mine, took his advice and made a lane transition, 'cause I hit a narrow road, forced a detour, and lost sight of the mission. It said do not enter, but I am a rebel, so I did it anyway. Was never lazy in love. On any given day, you will find me in the work zone. You think if I listened more, I wouldn't be riding alone. Stuck in traffic, afraid to exit off the highway, with the assumptions that I would lose everything I worked towards, that the rewards would wither away. Hit the roof on the pavement 'cause my pride was too tall. It clearly said low clearance. Sorry. I've swerved and crashed before, but with these potholes in my chest, I'm not sure if I can handle too much more interference. Got all the way to the end, only to see that the road was closed. Downhill one more time, sorry. So accustomed to the strain, these speed humps no longer hurt me. Young, wild, and reckless, I rushed through them all, hoping I hit my head and forced cognitive recalibration, or just an ease of this frustration. Just as tired as the Michelin man, another change of scenery is needed again. Back on the road I go, eager to pass it, no 200 I get, but with construction, I'm hoping this will be it. Then it hit me like an epiphany, like literally, felt like that speed hump. I got it through my head to listen to God, so this time I actually stopped on red. At that light, I told myself, stop being so stubborn. Just pay attention. He's been giving me all the signs yet. I've been following my own intuition. Swallow my pride and ignore the next intersection. 'Cause if I continue to do my own thing and pretend, I'll just keep hitting dead ends. He called to me, found me on vacant roads when I went astray, turned cold nights into brighter days, told me I've been looking for love in all the wrong places. And if I turned to him, I would see clear directions to true happiness. That was the one way. It was his way. Thank you.
You know, though I'm new to comedy, comedy really isn't new to me. I feel like I've grown up with comedy. As far back as I can remember, I was watching comedy, listening to comedy, and even inadvertently doing comedy, sort of like tonight. And looking back, trying to understand how that came about, I have to say I have to blame my mother. Because I grew up in San Juan, Puerto Rico. And one day she took me aside and she said, Juanchi. That's what she calls me. It's Little John. It's a bit disconcerting that they still call me that. But she took me aside and she said, Juanchi, I want you to stop viewing the local channels. I want you to focus exclusively in the American channels. NBC, CBS, Comedy Central, those guys. And I wondered why, and she gave me two reasons. One, she said, I want you to learn English. And you're not going to learn English watching Spanish TV. And I said, fair enough. I didn't say that. I didn't know English. But the second thing she said, you know, one day you're going to grow up to be a passionate Latino lover. I can't help it. She didn't say that either. She just said, tú eres boricua. But, you know, it's more or less the same. So she told me that, and she told me that it would mean the world to her if she could just stave me off for a couple of years from becoming that. And she wanted, therefore, to deprive me of that moral decadence and that sexual openness that is characteristic of Latino lover TV. You should get that network, by the way. And so I put it off, and I just grew up instead with the strong moral values of SNL, Seinfeld, and Kids in the Hall. Not the best, I agree. Also, for her first option, I ended up talking English like a Jewish grandmother, mostly because of Seinfeld. Thankfully, now it's morphed, because prior to coming to the CU, I spent 4 years in Boston. So you can imagine a Jewish grandmother in Boston, then moving to the Midwest. My friends, I am a sitcom. But growing up, this is all I knew about comedy, just jokes, 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 jokes. And so I'd memorize as many jokes as I could, because that's what I thought comedy was. And I try and incorporate it into everything I did. So in school, I try to wrangle all my friends together and try and perform the jokes that I had memorized. And it didn't go that well. For one, they didn't know English, so they didn't know what I was saying. And two, comedy is very contextual. It wasn't enough for me to memorize Paul Mooney's Race album. They didn't know the LA riots, and my jokes that started by, hey, I've been pulled over, didn't go over that well as well. Second, I tried to incorporate it into everything I did. So my first job, I tried to comedy it up, spruce it up a little bit with jokes. My first job was an interesting one. I was a newspaper boy, but not the regular one that you might think. I wanted to do it because my dad did it when he was in middle school. But that whole thing of going around in your Huffy, that faded away. Now it was for college students with cars. So instead, they took the cute 12-year-old and gave him the job of getting people to subscribe to the newspaper. And so that's what I did. I'd go house by house, knocking on doors, trying to wheedle away old retirees' money into getting the Sunday newspaper when they didn't really need the Sunday edition. But I try and incorporate the jokes into it, so I'd crack a joke here and there. The big joke ended up being that I was swindled the whole time. See, I was hired by a friend of mine that was a senior at school, and he told me he worked as a recruiter for the company, and I got paid every day in $5 KFC coupons. And that summer, I ate at KFC every day. And I thought this is what people did. When my dad talked about putting food on the table, I went that's exactly what I'm doing at the KFC table. Of course, I was getting swindled. My friend probably got those coupons some other way. But then I kept incorporating it into everything I did. In 11th grade, I wanted to be an architect, and I went to an architecture workshop for aspiring architects. I ended up flunking out, but I tried to incorporate the jokes into everything I did, and I think it was wonderful. I was, if you might call, the Le Corbusier your enthusiasm of comedy. And so I tried that out. Sorry about that. So I tried that out for a while, but it didn't work out either. My next job was pretty interesting, I think. It was in college, and I was working as a work-study component. And my sister, before me in college, had worked as a work-study at the Carrier Dome in Syracuse selling beer. And after 3 years of selling beer at the Dome for her work-study, she had come to hate beer. So I took a cue from her and decided not to do work-study on something that would later become near and dear to my heart. So instead, I was a chalkboard eraser. I got paid $15 to go before class and erase chalkboards. And as a nerdy, geeky, strange kid, interrupting a conversation with a girl to walk up randomly and start erasing the chalkboard in class didn't really help me out. And so if you're out there and you're thinking of pursuing this line of work, let me just say the trick is to endear yourself to the professor that came before in the class and get him or her to erase the board as a courtesy to you. And then you just cash the check. And that's sort of how it worked out. And now I'm here. And I'm trying to incorporate, I'm a TA in the math department. I'm trying to incorporate comedy into what I do. They call it harassment, but that's a technical issue. But I try to incorporate the jokes into what I do. And I really want to continue doing it in the future. I'll just end this monologue with a little thing. I said earlier that the CU comedy scene is great, and it's because of the comedians and the venues, but it's also because of you, the audience. So give yourselves a hand, not me. Thank you.
I would like to share an experience I had with the Domino's Pizza in Champaign, the one on campus, Green and First. Are we all familiar with it? So I was sitting at work 2 weeks ago. Work is kind of a stretch. I'm just an intern. I intern at the wildlife clinic at the U of I vet school. People bring us injured or abandoned wildlife. We fix them up good as new, and then we release them into the wild. That's what we do. I've been volunteering there for nearly 3 years now, and I've finally been promoted to just the intern. So you're looking at a really big deal right here. So I'm sitting at my just an internship 2 weeks ago, and it's about 11:30 on a Tuesday. Morning treatments are done. The volunteers have gone home. My manager went home for lunch. I'm all alone. I'm on pager duty. I just went to the vending machine and got a Pop-Tart. Things are happening. It's a s'more Pop-Tart. Things are happening. The clinic is mine. I'm large and in charge. I'm the only intern there. When the phone rings, and it's an unknown number, which is curious because normally we only get transfers from the front desk, so I know this is big. I pick up the phone, and I hear, "It's Domino's. We have a bird emergency." So it is big. So I slap on my hands-free phone, and I start pacing around the clinic and have possibly the most unnecessarily urgent conversation of my entire life. I say, "Well, you've called the right number. Give me the details." Well, a small black bird flew in through the front door and is flying around the kitchen. It keeps hitting the walls. I think its leg is broken. I named him Rocky. So, obviously, oh my gosh, I skipped ahead. Calm down, sir. I'm going to need you to bring this bird to me right away. Can you send me one of your employees? Well, no, I'm just the delivery guy. So I know I'm talking to the Domino's equivalent of just the intern. It's lunchtime, and my manager won't let me take any time off to bring the bird anywhere. He wants me to bring it outside, but I know it'll die if it just goes outside. Listen to me. I need you to order a pizza. Done. So I go online to the Domino's website. I order a pizza, and it's a cheese pizza with the white creamy sauce, and it's got black olives and feta cheese. It's my special formula. You should try it if you ever do it. So I go online, order the pizza, and I pull up the Domino's pizza tracker. Are we all familiar with this? So it's like this, it's this picture of like a man who looks like the Pringles can guy, and he's making pizza, and it shows you like the progress of your pizza. Like, John is putting it in the oven, Thomas is taking it out. Only John and Thomas names are present in this pizza place. Anyways, you like click on the oven and flames come out. This is a really special experience if you're like late at night ordering pizza and you're in that kind of state of mind. But if you're sober and it's 11:30 in the morning and you're waiting for a bird, it's a completely new experience. I'll tell you that. So the pizza guy shows up in 25 minutes. Way to go, Domino's. He gets out of the car with 2 pizza boxes. One of the boxes has holes poked in it, if you get my drift. I rush him into the clinic, and he opens the non-pizza pizza box where he has a small bird wrapped up in a Domino's apron. It's a small black bird. It has glossy tinted feathers, a bright yellow beak. It's a European starling. I'm going to tell you a few things about European starlings. As their name implies, they're not a native species. They're invasive. They're from Europe. Back in the day, William Shakespeare was a real big fan of European starlings. He wrote them into a lot of his plays because of their mimicry. He used them as plot devices. And in 1890, a bunch of Shakespeare fans went overseas, went to New York, and put on a production of Henry IV in Central Park and released a couple breeding pairs of starlings. A century later, they've completely taken over North America. European starlings they're occupying all the way south as Mexico, all the way north as the northern tip of Canada. And it's kind of an issue because they're starting to steal the habitats of natural birds that live in this area. Not only do they steal habitats, but they're also an interspecific brood parasite. Get this, meaning the females lay their eggs in the nests of other birds. So their babies, it's a little strange. Their babies hatch first, and they trick the mothers of other birds into feeding their own babies. therefore killing 2 birds with 1 egg. Thank you. Groans galore. Anyways, because European starlings and other invasive birds are such a threat to the native bird species, the Wildlife Clinic is required by law to euthanize any that come into the clinic. It's a sad thing, and you guys are laughing. It's a sad thing, and it's taken me nearly 2 years to get used to this. How am I supposed to tell this Domino's kid who just sacrificed his employment at Domino's and bought me a pizza? How am I supposed to tell him, like, thanks for the pizza, I'm gonna kill Rocky now? Don't blame me, blame Shakespeare. How am I supposed to tell him that? So I didn't. I lied to him. With very poor acting and probably a weird, like, smile on my face, I said, thanks for bringing him in. I'll take good care of him, and he'll be out there in probably a week's time. That kid skipped out of the clinic feeling like a hero, but I felt uncomfortable and guilty. But that's better than crushing a teenager's spirit, right? I did the deed, I filed the paperwork, and I pushed the whole thing out of my mind. Until 5 days ago, Tuesday, 11:30, same time as last week, just finished with morning treatments, the phone rings, my manager picks it up. And then I hear from the other side of the clinic, hello? Oh my God, you're from Domino's? How cool. Oh, okay, I wasn't here when you brought it in. Let me just check the computer. All right, the paperwork says EOA, euthanized on arrival. And then she gave the entire European starling spiel that I didn't have the guts to give to this poor kid. So apparently, when you handle a situation with the maturity of a just the intern, you can pretty much screw things up. But hey, at least I didn't have to tell him to his face or ever see him again. When my manager hangs up the phone, she says, can you go to Domino's on the way back? This kid needs his apron back. Thank you.